Okay. Welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of October the 6th, 2014. Let's all rise for a pledge of allegiance, followed by a period of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the chamber. The order of business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating name, address, and whether you are speaking in favor or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last meetings of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that day nor plan for a future agenda. Please spell your name for us if it looks like we might mess that up. And the other thing is you can go ahead and sign in after you speak so that we'll keep this flowing. First item, please.
Would be our public hearing consent agenda, items 1 through 7.
Any discussion? Staff questions? Next item, please.
All right, we can vote on these items. Items 3 through 6 were introduced by Cook.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Roy. Discussion? Call a roll.
Cook,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next would be our public hearing liquor resolutions. Those giving testimony are asked to come forward, raise their right hand for the clerk to administer the oath. After the oath, the witnesses shall state their names and addresses. Applicants or witnesses are not required to stay for the voting session. I'll call items 8 and 9 together. They're the application of JJ's Lounge LLC, doing business as The Lounge, for a Class C liquor license at 2001 West O Street, and the related manager application of Terry Schubert. Right hands? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, as you really believe it to be?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
State your name and address.
Terry Schubert, Paxton Circle, Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay. You want to tell us a little bit about your establishment?
I'm going to be the manager at The Lounge. I've been in the business for 12 years, and I was working there when it changed over the ownership, so I was there with the previous owners also. And I've managed a couple other bars in town, Mary's Place and Sweep Left.
Sir, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my bad. I wasn't sure how the process went. My name is Jason Johnson. I'm the owner of The Lounge
Okay.
and the LLC, JJ's Lounge.
Just a couple questions then. Have you completed the manager training
I have.
online? And all the employees as well?
They have.
Okay, so the certification there is all squared away?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Any discussion? Anybody who'd like to speak to this item, please? You guys are good. You can have a seat. Anybody who'd like to speak to this item? Questions? Staff questions? Next item, please.
All right, next I'll call items 10 and 11. They're the application of Booby G's Hurry Curry for a Class AB liquor license at 1601 Q Street, Suite D, and the related manager application of Jason Abels. You can raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you really believe it to be?
I do.
Thank you.
Jason Abels, 1200 South 23rd Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68502.
Okay. You want to tell us a little bit about your
I bought an
establishment?
existing business 2 months ago. It was Sherry Punjab, an Indian restaurant at 16th and Q, and I'm just converting it to a fast casual concept with delivery. And I'm cutting their can't remember what class it was, but I'm cutting it back to a beer-only establishment.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Any,
And I have the manager training, and all my employees have completed their appropriate
thank you
training,
very
so,
much. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody who'd like to speak to this item? Anybody like to speak to this item? Staff questions? Next item, please.
Next would be item 12, the manager application of Mitchell Martin for ZRC Operations Company doing business as Qdoba Mexican Grill at 211 North 12th.
Come right on up. We'll squeeze you in here.
Ms. Schubert, could you just move over to the other pedestal there with your colleague, and then that way? Oh, you got it done.
Okay.
You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you really believe it to be? Thank you.
Good.
Just state your name and
Yeah.
address.
Oh, Mitchell Martin, 5805 Saltillo Road, Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay. Mr. Martin, you want to tell us a little bit about your business?
I've been working with Qdoba for 8 years, just recently took over the one downtown, and I'm just trying to uphold the liquor license so we can still sell beer.
Okay. And we'll do the obligatory. It says you've not been through the training yet?
So I'm actually scheduled to do the training on the 23rd.
Okay, very good. Any questions?
Congrats on the promotion.
Any questions? Staff questions? Okay, thank you very much. Anybody who'd like to speak to this item? Next item, please.
Next, I'll call item 13, application of venue to expand its Class CK liquor license to add an additional outdoor area measuring approximately 19 feet by 88 feet to the west at 4111 Pioneer Woods Drive, Suite 100.
Anybody here who'd like to speak to this item? Apparently not. Okay. Anybody here who'd like to speak to this item? Staff questions? Next item, please.
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of items 8 through 12.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion? Call roll.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes?
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
And Mr. Chair, I'd move item 13 be continued till next week.
Second.
Seconded by Trent. Discussion? Call a roll.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes?
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next would be our public hearing ordinance's second reading. I'll call item 14, amending section 2.76.365 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to hours of work to provide that employees with a pay range prefixed by E who are eligible to retire will be required to retire within 1 year from the date they elect to reduce their hours.
Doug McDaniel, Human Resources. We are looking to amend the code here. As you may recall, those people in the E class, which are excluded, generally follow the LCEA negotiated contract. This is language we've negotiated into the LCEA contract, so now we're mirroring it for the E class employees.
Questions? Doug, do you want to can you give us the quick synopsis of what actually we changed and?
Well, essentially, when LCEA, they had this ability to retire, prior to their retirement, they would be able to reduce their hours and maintain their accruals for benefits and sick time purposes. So they might cut back to 36 hours. There was no end date on that, so we negotiated an end date. It could only be for 1 year period of time. So that's basically the change.
Okay, John.
Just following up on that too, Mr. Daniels, what if they get to a certain level, say under 20 hours, do they still accrue, or at that point they become purely part-time?
Really, that depends upon the director and whether or not the director feels that position would really, be able to function in that capacity. I don't think I've seen any, Mr. Camp, that go below 36.
Okay. If they did get that low,
They would probably be classified as a part-time. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Doug. Anybody who'd like to speak to this item? Next up. Next item, please.
Next would be item 15, amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter M to change the pay range of building and safety manager from an M03 to an M02.
Again, Doug McDaniel, Human Resources. This position classification is currently vacant. We have no incumbents. We seek to move it from its current assignment of an M3 to an M2. We are anticipating potential audits in the future, but we feel that market data will carry it at M2 very easily if need be.
Okay. Discussion? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody who'd like to speak to this item? Staff questions? Next item, please.
Next is item 16, change of zone 14025. Application of B&J Partnership for a change of zone to designate the O'Connell Galbraith House as an historic landmark on property generally located at South 9th Street and G Street.
Ed Zimmer, Planning Department. I would just briefly speak for this item. It's been before the Preservation Commission and Planning Commission, and both recommend it unanimously to you. Property in question is a small story-and-a-half brick house at 727 South 9th. It's associated with a special permit that was approved at the Planning Commission level, but only you can approve a landmark. And this special permit, of course, has a condition with it that it only can take effect if the landmark is approved. This building dates to about 1880. It was originally the home of and probably built by John O'Connell. In my research, I found that in the early 19-teens, it was the home of John and Mabel Galbraith, and they were photographed in front of the house, 727, and the address is visible above their hats, by John Johnson, the early African-American photographer of Lincoln, about whom the book Lincoln in Black and White and the exhibit Recovered Views focuses. It's the landmark on the basis of its very early age. It's generally a recognizable condition. I should, in honesty, mention to you, it looks like a red brick building. It is a red brick building. But what you're looking at is a stucco covering over the red brick that is probably about 60 years old, and I think still really conveys the impression of the building, but it does have a probably patent product or proprietary product of some kind on it. But I think still lets us know that where John and Mabel stood is still very recognizable. It happens that the special permit request and Mr. Anthony, the originator of the special permit request and the landmark, would operate a Southern cooking restaurant there. So that isn't part of the appropriateness, but that's appropriateness probably on a different scale. It has preservation restrictions that would come with it as any landmark, and those items that are not yet designed, like a sign that would come along, are conditioned to be fitting the O1 zoning and approved by the Preservation Commission. So I think it's a nice package for you, and if it gains your approval, this project can move forward.
Any questions?
Sure. How soon would you have your restaurant open?
Between the end of the month and the middle of the month, we are kind of like trying to push it. It's been a while trying to put this in motion, and work diligently at really committing myself to do it, really, and faith, the faith.
Okay.
John?
I want to congratulate you on the interesting article that was in a recent paper about you and
Thank
what
you,
you've
Mr.
done.
Carroll.
I'm glad you're making Nebraska a permanent home and here in Lincoln.
I like it.
Carl?
No beaches, but I like it.
You're close to Capitol Beach. Come on, man.
Right?
We're working on that.
I did read that too, and saw something about the Carolinas in there. Is that what? Okay.
Yeah, my family's originally from a little place called Chapin, South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Matter of fact, I think they barely have a library. Yes.
Well,
Yes. That's not good, but yes.
I got family from there. They couldn't read if they had one. So, okay. Okay.
A little place called Chicago also, right?
Yeah.
Let's move on.
For Ed, yeah. This, you said this house was approximately 1880. How many 1880 structures would you say that we have extant in Lincoln?
I think I have more fingers than,
Okay.
especially residential properties.
Yeah.
This is about the same age as what we call the Seton and Lee building, Lead Bellies in Haymarket, which is the oldest building in Haymarket. There are 5 or 6 perhaps houses of this age or older. But
Louis
that-
Seifert
we have to
houses, maybe about.
Kennard House,
Yeah.
Louis Seifert, John Miller House down at 10th and E, just a very small number. Almost all those are frame. Only Kennard that I can identify is probably of this age and brick.
Yeah,
So it's
So
a
this
very,
real-
very
yeah.
early house. Very
important
early house.
structure for the building, so, yeah, thank
In
you.
the history.
Any other questions? Ed, the makeup of the neighborhood looks like mostly residential. Is that correct?
The zoning is 01,
Right.
which is the zoning for this kind of office area around the Capitol and around this
Okay.
building. There are 2 residences north of it in that 01 district. Certainly as we go immediately west, we cross into South Bottoms, or south into South Bottoms residential areas. It shares a parking lot with a former grocery store on the corner south of it that is Lincoln Literacy Center.
Okay.
Under the same,
Right.
that double lot is all under the same ownership. This
Okay.
would be a lease of that one fragment of the lot.
All right. Thank you. Gentlemen.
Yes.
Anybody who'd like to speak to this item? Staff questions? Next item, please.
Next would be item 17, assessing public health nuisance abatement costs associated with the clearing of public nuisances by the health department to the following benefited properties as listed.
We're going to list them. Judy Halstead, Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department. We come before you annually to let you know what properties we have abated because the property owner has not done so even when given appropriate notice. You'll notice that some of the properties have been actually abated twice in the last year. There were actually 5 of them. And I did not bring forth a motion to amend because I don't think, Jeff, that we needed one. 5 of the properties were abated twice. In the agenda lists 2 of them twice, the 6031 Cornhusker and the 1336 North 39th. The other 3 that were abated twice, which are 918 South 16th, 2140 West Plum, and 2248 Sheldon Street, were not listed twice on your agenda, but they were listed, and they were listed in the attachments twice. So I believe all of the properties were appropriately noticed. The health department sent letters out giving them notice of this meeting, plus they had had multiple correspondence from the health department previous to us abating the properties. So I believe everything is in order and that they have all been appropriately noticed for this. So with that, be happy to answer any questions that you have. I think you have the materials in front of you about what happened and our costs, and we're asking your approval to move forward with the assessments.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody who'd like to speak to this item? Staff questions? Next item, please.
Next would be item 18, approving a conservation easement agreement between the city and LC Partnership to preserve the flood storage capacity on property described as the south 88 feet of Lot 29, Block 15, Con, Metcalf, and Farwell subdivision, generally located at 11th and Y Street.
Good afternoon, Ben Higgins with Public Works. This is a conservation easement for some right-of-way that was given over to the developer, and so as part of what we normally do, we ask for a conservation easement over that, and they're going to fill that area, so we asked for a mitigated area on their property. So with any questions on that?
Carl.
So what will be the mitigated property? How are they going to mitigate this effect?
What they do, this is like a housing development. So
Right.
we said as part of that, and they have, so they had to do a no net fill on that. So when they do a no net fill, they have to figure out how much fill they're going to put in and how much they're taking out. And so what they did is they mitigated that on their own property on the parking lot there, but they couldn't use that as part of their calculations for no fill. So it makes the math all work out.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody who'd like to speak to this item? Staff questions? Next item, please.
Next is authorizing an application to the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission for land and water conservation grant funding assistance for the renovation of Lakeview Park located at Northwest 20th and Q Streets.
Anybody would like to speak to this item? Okay. Any questions up from up here? Okay, staff questions? Next item, please.
That would conclude our public hearings. We can move into the voting session. Public hearing ordinances second reading are items 14 through 16. Item 17 is assessing public health nuisance abatement costs. This was introduced by Christensen.
So moved.
Second.
Second by John. Discussion. Call a roll.
Cook? Emery?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 18 is the conservation easement agreement between the city and LC Partners, introduced by Christensen.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. Second by Carl. Discussion. Call a roll.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen. Motion carried, 7-0. Item 19 is authorizing the application to the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission for land and water conservation grant funding assistance for the renovation of Lakeview Park located at Northwest 20th and Q Streets, introduced by Christensen.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Carl. Discussion. Carl.
Yeah, just since we didn't have testimony on this relates to a small park in the Westo neighborhood, and it's being developed in coordination between Games and Parks and our Parks and Rec. It's a 50-50 split of the cost, so certainly nice that we get the state paying for half of the cost of improving a neighborhood park.
And also, our city portion is being funded through community development block grant funds, so really it's a pretty good win for the city.
Okay. Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next are ordinances third reading, item 20, vacation 14006, vacating 13 feet of the Y Street right-of-way east of 10th Street, generally located adjacent to 1018, 1020, 1022, 1024, 1036, 1048, and 1052 Y Street, introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Carl. Discussion. Carl.
Yes, this project is one that has been in conversation now for about almost 2 years. Originally, the developer had a much larger complex planned, and that was not greeted very warmly by neighbors, but this concept is much more manageable, approximately a tenth the size of the previous one. And in addition to the scope being much smaller, he also has moved it farther away from the existing homes in the neighborhood with less impact on the neighborhood. So it's looks like it's a win-win for everyone.
Any other questions? This actually was as recommended by the neighbors to buffer the area a little bit more, which is always a good thing when we can have the neighbors be part of this and work. So call roll, please.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 21 is vacation 14007, vacating the right-of-way stub of Sherman Court adjacent to Outlot B, Van Dorn Meadows, First Edition, generally located at Sherman Street and Holmes Park Road. Introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Larian. Discussion? Call the roll.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes?
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Ordinances first reading are items 22 through 24, and resolutions on first reading are items 25 through 28. Our pending list are items 29 through 33. Next week is the open mic session.
Mr. Chair, I'd move for adjournment.
Second.
Second by Trent. Discussion? Call the roll.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.